So, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Yes She Can project. I cannot tell you how excited I am to be joined by the gorgeous Nyree. Hi, Nyree.
Hello.
Thank you for coming on. It's been a long time coming, to be fair, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've been kind of chatting in the background and waiting for us. You've got a very busy schedule. Been waiting for a slot.
Bless you. Well, we're here now. That's the
Yeah.
main thing, isn't it? So, before we begin, well, actually, as we begin, could you give me a little bit of like background into like your journey so far? So I understand that you left a corporate career to set up your own business, which is called Jack and Grace. Beautiful. So yeah, if you could just kind of talk us a little bit about through that journey and what it meant for you.
I have had a bit of a sort of squiggly time to career to kind of get to this point. So started off our company's communications, so marketing, PR, and behavior change. And I'd always worked in sort of behavior change roles, trying to get people to think about like living more sustainably. And sort of made my way through a series of jobs, started off working in charities, and then found myself in more of a corporate kind of position.
Okay.
And I've always liked hard work. I'm the eldest of three children. I think that we're sort of raised slightly differently to the other children. I don't know whether you agree, but I think the as the eldest child, I think you sort of imbue more of the pressure and the sort of kind of
Definitely.
goals for your from your parents, don't you? So always loved like hard work. It's been kind of bred into me. Always wanted to sort of follow the rules, whether that's in school
Yeah.
or then in work, you're sort of figuring out what the rules are, and there's the written down rules, and then there's the sort of rules that you realize are into play just by watching people. And
Yes.
so, like for example, you'll have the sort of you'll have your times of work in your contract, but
Hmm.
then you see how all of your colleagues behave and how long they stay and how early they arrive, and you realize what the rules kind of really are. So I was
That's
always
really
trying to
interesting, actually.
all the
Yeah.
stuff that
It's like
you
the unwritten stuff,
all
isn't
the
it?
unwritten rules, exactly, yeah, and you just sort of breathe it in, and you probably don't even realize that they're the rules, but you're just learning by watching.
Yeah.
So I always tried really hard to follow all of the rules. And I think the more senior you get, the closer to the sort of rules that you get, you
Of
become, there are
course.
more rules, you become closer to the where the rules are being made. And then it was when I had my daughter, suddenly, despite my best efforts, and I tried really hard to continue with living up to the rules.
Yeah.
And then it was when I had my daughter that found it really difficult. And suddenly the rules were really hard to follow.
Oh,
And they sort of stopped adding up, and however hard I tried. So, for example, just going back to that start time, end time
yeah.
example, you've got nursery cutoff times, and you've got
Of
kind of
course.
other requirements. You can't stay as long as you sort of maybe you used to before you had children. And eventually, it took me such a long time, but I eventually realized that it probably wasn't me. It was the
Yeah.
rules that weren't right,
Working for you.
rather than me. And then once I'd had that sort of epiphany, which it should have come a lot quicker, but for some reason it took me ages and ages. But once
Oh.
I'd realized it, I couldn't kind of unsee it. And I
Mhm.
started seeing more of the rules that were around. So I thought, hang on, I'm just not sure that's fair, or that I can see how that wouldn't work for unless you're a sort of very specific type of person,
Yeah.
a straight white man,
Yes.
straight white well-off man. I could see how the rules were sort of stacked against lots of people.
Yeah.
And once I'd seen that, I couldn't unsee it. And I was trying to change things from within, and it was a really frustrating process. And I was
Oh,
really miserable. And so I
yeah.
just thought I could go on like this, or I can do something about it. And so I left with nothing to go to. And then I was chatting to a colleague who had worked with in my very first job, and we'd gone our separate ways, but we'd stayed friends. and we came back together and we were like, there's got to be a better way of doing this. Like,
Yeah.
we need new rules. So that is
Yes, we need to rewrite them.
yes, exactly. That's when we set up Jack and Grace, and we're 5 years in now, of doing the day job, which is sort of communications work for lots of lovely clients, and then bit that we also get really passionate and excited about, which is the whole rewriting the rules
Yeah.
stuff.
Wow. So whilst you were in that position at the time, was there anybody that you felt like you could speak to about the fact that the rules seemed stacked against you?
I was really lucky that I was going through a similar experience as a colleague, kind of same
Okay.
sort of level, same sort of experience, similar ages, both pregnant at the same time. So in fact, that helped because we were able to very sort of tentatively, because I think the thing that crushes you is you think it's you. I don't
Of
know
course.
if it's something that is particularly weighted towards women, but I think we automatically think we're the problem. Like,
Yeah.
it might, I'm not keeping up. I'm not able. I'm obviously not doing this right. And the messages that I was getting, having had really positive sort of feedback and fast progression, the messages that's what I've been used to kind of receiving. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it was more, you don't seem as committed. I was thinking, I'm
Oh,
trying, like I'm doing my best. So
yeah.
it was really useful just to have another human who I could say, is it me? Am I going mad?
Yeah.
And we were able to sort of find our way together. And we both came to the conclusion at the same time that it wasn't going to be feasible to be able to stay, which is
Yeah.
such a shame, because I think people give a lot to their job. Like, most
Of
people
course.
want to do a really good job and work very hard, and you sort of get to a certain point and you lose all of that. From a company's point of view, you lose all that experience and the
Yeah.
passion and the talent. Um, so yeah, it did help having somebody just to check that it wasn't going completely
Yeah.
bad.
Bless you. Well, I think it must have been extremely difficult if you didn't have that other woman to talk to. Like, because I can imagine there's probably people listening who have been in that situation and did feel like it was them, just
Yeah.
because, I think going back generations, the rules have never been written for us anyway, if we're going to be honest about it. And I think now that people are kind of challenging that, it's really lighting up fire under people to say, well, actually, this is where equality comes in.
Yep. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think earlier on in my career, I absolutely hold my hands up. I think I was sort of part of perpetrating that. You just kind of go with the rules, the rules
Yeah,
are the rules and you
exactly.
don't question them. And it was really useful to have that sort of other colleague going through the same thing. I think it can be really lonely, especially when it looks like, certainly from the outside, like everyone's flourishing. But I think we hide a lot, don't we, at work because we feel
Mhm.
we have to.
Definitely. What impact did it have on your mental health, Nairi?
Wasn't good. It
Mhm.
wasn't good. It was very difficult. So when I told my boss that I was pregnant, um, and sadly it was a woman, it was another woman.
Oh, you're joking.
No, it
Okay.
was and another mother. But she was really upset, so she cried and she took it very personally when I kind of shared the news. And I'd held off sharing because I'd had my suspicions that it wasn't going to go down particularly well. And then she didn't speak to me for a whole month. It was
Oh,
so I'm painting you can already tell it was a bit of a toxic
yes.
environment anyway, for some of this stuff to be happening. But
And
that
for
was
you
really
to have
hard.
loved work since, you can
Yeah.
remember, to then
Yeah.
be in a situation where you're really not looking forward to going, whilst managing, obviously, being pregnant and everything that
Yes.
that brings, it must have been really difficult.
Yeah, it was horrible. It was quite isolating and lonely, as you'd sort of expect. And
Yeah,
yeah, it was the complete flip. It felt like all your hard work from many years was worth nothing.
yeah,
This is kind of changed, and that makes you feel duped because you think, well,
yeah,
why did I bother? What an idiot am I to have put in all of that effort and the sacrifices that come with it, for
But
somebody
look
else.
again, though, we're turning it round on. It's us that's the issue. Oh, we shouldn't have done that, or we shouldn't have
Yeah,
made the
very
effort.
true.
Or we do it, don't we? It's
We
like
do.
ingrained into us that we have to
Yeah.
mold ourselves constantly
Yeah,
when
you're
it
so
isn't our
right.
fault.
No, it's a complete habit, isn't it? Just that's exactly where I go. So yeah, it wasn't brilliant, and I did get very low. But actually the lowest point came when I returned, because
Okay.
you're then, I think, you're sleep deprived, your tolerance is lower. Your tolerance for, are we allowed to swear on this podcast? Probably,
Yeah, of
probably not.
course. Yeah.
Okay. Your tolerance for the bullshit is lower, isn't it? You know what I mean?
It is.
So I think yeah, you've got a shorter kind of fuse for that kind
Yeah.
of crap, and you're also just exhausted and juggling, and everything's new. So that was probably the rock bottom bit, and I suppose that's the main thing I've learned is when you think you're struggling and not able to keep up with the rules, it's actually a good opportunity to like look at the rules and
Definitely.
check whether it's them
Yeah.
rather than you.
Bless you. So you created a company that you would have wanted to work for. Can you tell me a bit about, like, obviously you met your business partner and then you launched Jack and Grace, but was there any, like, okay, this is how we're going to do it differently? What kind of policies do you have that make it different?
Yes, so we met, my co-founder and we met in a coffee shop, and we wrote down, because I didn't want to get burned again. And as
Yeah.
much as you think you're friends with somebody, it was a bit like dating. Like, we wanted to
Mhm.
make sure there was a good value. Like, if you're going to run a business together, you should
Yeah.
probably check that your values are vaguely
Aligned.
aligned.
Yeah.
Probably sensible. So we wrote down, like, we had piece of paper and pens, and we wrote down our sort of red lines, like stuff, our vision for what the company would be like, what the culture would be like. Any red lines for us personally? For me, it was if I did want to have a second child, and I wasn't sure whether I did, but if I did, I wanted that to be absolutely okay. I wanted there to be no sort of drama, or I definitely didn't want another sort of person at work crying when I tell them that I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
Like, there were a few red lines like that. And then we swapped over our lists and sort of read them through. And they were quite different. But all of the sort of driving values that sat behind them were the same. And also we could live with each other's. So it felt
Yeah.
really good to sort of have that up front. And I think previously, when I'd taken up roles, I'd not done the values check bit,
Okay.
which it felt really good to sort of go through that process. And I think you do spend so much time at work and you throw yourself into it. It's quite a basic check, but I just didn't, it had never ever before this occurred to me to sort of do that sort of values check. So we had done this, and we'd agreed kind of what the red lines were. And so we were able to then shape this company from scratch. And we kept thinking, like, what what are the rules? Let's figure out, like, what are all those unwritten rules, and
Mhm.
how can we rewrite them? And we wanted to set it up as an experiment, and it totally
Okay.
has been an experiment. And it's
Yeah.
it's really easy when it was just the two of us with our laptops, and no overheads. It's
Mhm.
very easy to be really experimental, and
Of course.
there's no risk, is there? So the stakes are different now, but we still maintain that sort of, we're experimenting with all the stuff that we've always been told, either you have to do it this way, or you can't
Yeah.
do that, won't work. We're just experimenting, and some of the things that we've tried haven't worked, but loads of them have.
Amazing. And I think we, sorry about the stutter there. And I think that we, when we go for different roles or different jobs, I think it's so surface level. Many of us wouldn't even think to check that the values align. So the fact that you started from the inside out with Jack and Grace is so incredible. And I would imagine that it will make you think a different way, like for the rest of your future career,
Yeah.
whatever that might look like.
Yeah, totally. I think this is one of the sort of the unwritten rules is about what success looks like. You get your first job, and you want to be financially independent, and you're sort of you're measuring, or certainly I was, that was my measure of success. Like, am I in work? Am I earning a decent living? Am I
Yes,
progressing? And actually, this we were we were sharing before we started hitting record that everything happens for a reason, and we both sort of believe that. And I strongly feel that this was one of those moments where it happened for a reason and it's a turning point. And just in a very sort of small corner of the world, at least I'm building, rather than sitting miserable in a role that isn't working for me, in a small way, I'm doing something about it, and that feels very rewarding, even on the
definitely.
tough days.
Yes, exactly. One of the, obviously, you know, a lot of your policies and your rules will be written surrounding pregnancy, motherhood, flexible working. You also have a miscarriage policy in Jack and Grace. Why do you think that this is particularly important, and what can other companies do to kind of make sure that they're doing the same?
Yes, we've been sort of building our policies as we go. So one of the things we do, and we as you'd expect from my sort of journey, we're very geared towards making sure that working parents can work and can
Yeah.
sort of have a workplace that supports them. But those things also benefit lots of other people, people with caring responsibilities, people with neurodiversity. Like, there are lots of people who
Yeah.
just want work to be work, and that you give your all to it, but it's not life. Anybody who's kind of coming at it from that point of
Interesting.
view,
Yeah.
it's just a job. It can be a good job and a fun job, but
Yeah.
it's not life.
But sometimes it does become, sometimes you kind of live to work rather
Yeah,
than work to live, don't you?
yeah,
There's that famous saying, and it can become all encompassing. But then you can look back and think, well, actually, I've just solidly worked and haven't lived for that time.
yeah. You can easily, and you can quite easily fall into those traps of thinking. And I think you do this, the busier you get, the more you think, well, things will fall apart without me. And
Exactly.
actually it changes, but it doesn't, it sort of evolves. So I think yeah, totally, you can quickly fall into that game of just living in order to work rather than living, work should be a very rewarding and fulfilling bit of your life.
Of
But
course.
it's not the be all and end all. So we've done a few things like part-time. So we offer all roles part-time as standard. So you can work full-time, but you have to put a request in, just to sort of flip that rule or that norm on its head a little bit. So there are lots of policies like that. But the miscarriage one, so I've had two miscarriages, and
Sorry.
obviously unpleasant. Yeah, not a nice experience.
Yeah.
But again, I think, having gone through all of these experiences that we collect up, you can find a benefit in them. And the benefit there for me was, okay, I can write this miscarriage policy from a point of being more informed. Obviously, I've only got my own experience, but
Yeah.
even that allowed me to be able to create a policy that is I think really supportive, and will meet people's needs, even though they might differ from what I went through. The thing
Yeah.
that shocked me about miscarriage, and it's so silly, because I'm 41 now, and I realize I still don't really know how my actual body works. Like, there's so
Mhm.
much that I don't know. But it was such a physical experience. The actual physicality of having a miscarriage was really surprising to me. And it probably shouldn't have been a surprise, but it was. And that's helped me. One of the things we have in the policy is just allowing time off, not just for the person who's experienced the miscarriage, but you need a lot of support. Like, you
Definitely.
need more hands-on support than I think you'd
Mhm.
realize. So we also include the same amount of paid time off for a partner. And
Wow.
also, if you're a friend, or if you're a mum and your grown-up daughter goes through this, we've allowed provision within that for time off for those, just so that you can actually be there to support someone. So
Yeah.
from something, yeah, really bad, something good has come out of it. And
Definitely.
I think, yeah, as we were saying, there's always a sort of positive that you can take from these horrible experiences, isn't there?
Yeah. 100%. So what would you say to like other business owners that know that they need to make changes within their current policies, but they just don't know where to start?
This sounds really silly, but I think step one is figuring out what are the rules that you're following that you maybe don't even realize you're following. So
Okay.
a good one is around salary transparency. So we've got this particularly in kind of Britain. I think we're particularly bad at talking about money. I don't
Yeah.
know, do you agree? Yeah, we've
Yeah,
got.
definitely. Have you seen the advert as well where it says, "What salary are you expecting?" Oh no, you tell me. Oh no, you tell me. It's so funny.
It's mad, isn't it? That yeah, you wouldn't accept not talking about the money bit if you went into a shop or something and there were no prices, you'd kind of
Exactly.
ask. It's mad.
I'd,
But
I'd do a sweep browse and then walk straight
yeah,
out.
yeah, exactly. You want to know where you stand, but for a job, we'll travel miles for an interview and we don't even know what the pay is.
Yeah.
That blows my mind.
Mhm.
So salary transparency, and there's a lot of nervousness around kind of being more transparent with salaries, but it is a massive driver of inequality for women, but for lots of groups of people.
Yeah.
And if you can be more open with your salaries, but that is an example of one of those unwritten rules. And I think a lot of people think you shouldn't talk about your salary, like you shouldn't share with your colleagues. You
I
know,
think like even like on like job adverts and stuff, sometimes like has that always been a thing where you have to guess what the salary, it just seems bizarre. Like how can you possibly know whether it's the job for you without
yeah.
you sorting out your own like housekeeping in the background? It doesn't make
I
sense.
know lines like very competitive. What does that mean? Competitive with what?
But their opinion on competitive compared to our opinion could be completely
Exactly.
wildly
Yeah, it
different.
means nothing. It absolutely
Mhm.
means nothing. Um, but that is one of those rules we've sort of swallowed, and I think we've absorbed these rules so much that we've stopped questioning them. They're almost like the air that we breathe, and so we've
Yeah,
stopped kind of realizing that we're following rules. Another one that we get is as people can't always get their heads around the part-timer standard. So, but
okay.
how do you make that stack up? How can you make a business run like that? And I always flip it, and actually the weirder thing to me, if you break it down, it's actually weirder that we've decided that all of the jobs have to fit into 37 and a half hours. Like that
Yeah,
is the number, and all of the jobs have to fit into that. So we're following a rule that makes no sense, that is years and years out of date, but because we've sort of breathed it in, we've accepted it.
yeah,
So I know it sounds really silly, but I think job one is like, what are the rules that you're following that maybe you didn't realize have just seeped in because they've
yeah.
become part of the furniture, and see what you can unpick. And you don't
Mm.
have to do all of them. And I really try hard not to be like, no one wants to be preached at, but I think if there are certain rules that maybe you haven't even realized you're following, that's a good place to start. What could you push? What could you do differently? What could you rewrite?
And also, I think, what values do you stand by, like as a company, like what your ethos is, but also how you feel as a human and how you would like to see workplaces be.
Yes, yeah, drawing on your own experience. And there are so many benefits. It feels scary when I talk about this stuff. The feedback is often, well, that's not how we do it, or that feels really scary, or well, if we do it for one person, we'll have to do it for all.
Yeah,
So, why is that so frightening to us as leaders? It doesn't have to be. We
yeah,
could trial stuff, and if you communicate in the right way, you can, as we do with our team, you can say, look, we're experimenting. This might not work, and
yeah.
we tried. One of the things we brought in when we were busy chucking rules out the window, we had to grab one and bring
Tearing them
it back
off.
in. Yeah, we had to keep it, reel it back in, which was the sort of unlimited leave, which sounds super fancy, doesn't it? Like unlimited holiday sounds dreamy. Like
Okay.
what could possibly be the downside of that? But when we tried it out, what we found is people take less leave. And the more I've read on this is, I
Wow.
know it's a weird, but
Yeah.
people are diligent. Like most people are diligent. They want to do a good job. They don't want to let anyone down.
Mhm.
And so they ended up taking, so with actually with holiday allowance, what we learn is it's better to give people a number to aim for and say, we expect you, like holiday time off is so important. It
Yeah.
means you'll come back more productive. But
Hmm.
people, we seem to be unwilling to give ourselves a break. Like, but we see
Yeah.
break as a sign of weakness, so we end up taking less leave. So actually, if you give people a number and it's a problem if they haven't taken their leave,
Hmm.
that seems to work. So we've tinkered with holiday. We've made it so that you can take the bank holidays anytime. So you don't have to take them on the bank holiday days if you don't want
Oh
to.
my God.
Just like a simple thing that you can just flip on its head.
Yeah.
But actually giving people a set amount of leave has worked much, much better. So that is one rule we've had. You know, some rules are
Okay.
great. It's not about getting rid of rules. It's just about maybe questioning all of the ones that we're following and why.
But I think, you see, I would flip that and think to myself, well, the psychology behind that would be that you have people that work for you who aren't going to take the piss. It's like giving somebody, you know, I don't know what you could say, like a box of celebrations and saying you can take as many as you like. Like us as humans, we would take one or, you know, maybe two, but that would feel cheeky. So I think allowing them the responsibility of taking, it shows that they're good people because they're not going to, you know, when you give them an inch, they're not going to take a mile kind of scenario.
Totally. You've hit the nail on the head there because I think so often our fear as people of if you manage other people is, well, you know, people are going to take the mick here
Yeah.
if we give an inch. But actually that's a different problem. It's either a problem with
Yeah.
you as a leader of your fear, and your sort of lack of trust,
Yeah.
or there's a real problem with somebody and a team
Mhm.
member going on, and you need to address that problem
Yeah.
rather than bringing in these blanket rules that make you feel like you're more in control but haven't actually solved the problem.
Yeah.
Like solve the actual problem, not the one you've just made up.
Yeah. And I think that's probably why, like, you see that as not working. I think it's an excellent insight into the team that
Yes,
you have, you know.
totally. Yeah, it is. It's that's literal evidence, isn't it? That,
Yeah.
you know, people aren't going to take the piss.
Bonus for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gold star.
Yeah, we'll get some celebrations and hand out
Yeah.
the best ones in the Malteser ones are the absolute
Oh,
winners from this.
yeah.
They should just put more of those in.
Yeah, definitely. Bless you. So, Nairi, you've talked about part-time working. Something that you also that is a big subject for you is like hybrid working and flexible working too. Um, what are the benefits of this, do you think? And then on the flip side, could there be anybody that's maybe unintentionally left out?
We do bang on a lot about
Hang on.
flexible working, like forever talking about flexible working, and hybrid, and yeah, how you can make the sort of patchwork of flexible working work. We tried to be really bendy in our flexible working, like how far can we push it? What works? And we've pushed it really far. So we have what I would call quite radical flexible working in place, so people can choose. We have kind of key points in the week where you have to be available, but they're few and far between. And apart from that, you can sort of make up your own hours based on caring responsibilities or just your work preference, like when you're going to be most sort of productive. And
Definitely.
the work that we do, you know, we it's comms work. You can do it from a desk, you know, you can do it from a computer. You're pushing buttons on your laptop. So you can do that from anywhere and you can do it basically at any time.
Okay.
Or certainly most of the time you can. So we try and really sort of push that. Where it doesn't work is when the culture doesn't sit behind it. So you can have as many policies as you want in place, but unless your culture and the expectations of everybody are aligned around what the flexible working means,
Yeah.
um, and what your colleagues need from you, and then what you can take in return,
Yeah.
you have to work really hard. Like it's not an easy or I don't want to paint a picture of it being just like a really easy option.
Yeah.
It's as hard as any option, you know, getting people to work full time in an office is hard. And the flexible working, you have to work at anything like that. You just have to put work into it. But
Yeah.
for us, it's worth it because we can access talent that we just would not otherwise be able to access, because it wouldn't,
Yeah.
those people would not be in the jobs market because they've been effectively sort of pushed out because there's not enough
100%.
flexible
Yeah.
working. So you do have to work at it, and it is that. So one of the things is really good communication between colleagues. You have to have that, but
Yeah.
also expectation that when a colleague is exercising their flexible working for whatever reason, that is allowed, that is okay, and
Yeah.
embracing that. And equally, when you want to do that, that's your right, and you'll be kind of covered. So it's
Mhm.
everybody supporting each other and accepting that the flex is the way forward. And
Definitely.
I found it's not like, not everybody wants to work in that way. Some people like more structure and more kind of
And the
boundaries.
rigidity it kind of
Yeah,
gives
yeah,
them. I would imagine, right? I would see it as, you know, like when you're parenting a toddler, like if you don't give them any rules, then they push too far, and then because they don't feel safe. So with you saying that, you know, people might see it as, oh, it's easy work because you are in control and you can choose. I would actually say that it's probably harder in a sense because you have to have that accountability to yourself. And I think that's what shows then that you have the right people in your team, that they can take that responsibility on and don't need shepherding in a way. Because like you said, people work so differently, don't they? They enjoy the rigidity of the structure and the really strict rules. But when you've got these people who are working in flexible hybrid working, and they're still managing to keep on top of their responsibilities, plus everything they've got going on the outside, which is why they need the flexible working in the first place, that shows a real dedication and a real talent to be able to work in such a way.
totally. Yeah, I'm nodding really vigorously. Yeah, totally, totally. It's a real benefit. And when we do staff team surveys, the thing that comes back as like the best benefit is the flex. But it is also a responsibility, and it only works if everybody sort of plays their part.
Yeah,
But when it works beautifully, and it unlocks so much potential because, yeah, people just would not be able to find a role.
yeah,
There are so few part-time roles of it out there that are,
yeah,
you know, really rewarding and great roles.
definitely.
So just in a little way, that's what we're trying to do, just sort of show that this stuff can and does work really well.
Yeah. So from a business point of view, like for Jack and Grace, so in terms of offering part-time, would you then have to do it? Is it almost like a job share, like split with, so double the amount of staff?
We offer job share as kind of when we're recruiting, we always welcome kind of job share applications. But
Okay.
mostly what we find is it's a conversation. It's what do we think we need versus what is this individual? What have they got available? Like what can they manage? And that old saying of if you want a job done, find a busy, I mean, I think the phrase is find a busy mum, but I think any parent, you
Yeah.
are so efficient with your time because you have to be.
But you
It's
kind of do feel
amazing.
out of control at the same time, though, don't you? So it's like a
Yeah,
juxtaposition there. It's like,
just got to
yes,
keep
I
plate
am
spinning.
managing.
Yeah, you are. I think we have the ability to switch off the other. You know, you sometimes can feel like you've run a marathon in order to get to your desk, and then you sort of focus in, hone in on the job, and then but you can't be too distracted because you've got to kind of focus. So I would just say it can be more of a jigsaw puzzle than you think. And I think many people find that quite frightening. I mean, Alan Sugar would not approve. He would not approve of any of this
You're fired.
conversation. I don't think he's going to listen. I feel like he's going to opt out. But it absolutely can be done. You've just got to figure it out and lean into this is the unknown. So yeah, it takes a bit more work to figure it out, but it does unlock a lot of talent, and people don't leave. You know, there are real upsides. You hang on to that experience because
Yeah.
people want to stay.
Amazing. So, like, with our current climate, the way that things are, the return to work, so to speak, is really hot topic at the moment. Obviously, coming from your point of view, but what are your thoughts on this, Nyree?
Yeah, return to work. There's just so many of the sort of mandates that are coming out, aren't there, where they want people back in the office.
Yeah.
I I
What difference does it make? I just don't understand.
I don't know. I do think from conversations with other business leaders, I honestly think there's an element of they want to see all their humans, and
Okay.
there's no sort of logic, or it's quite an emotional place that those decisions are made. Like I
Yeah.
want to see everybody. But yeah, going back to what I said earlier, that points to a bigger issue, which is a lack of trust. And if you don't trust your
Of
team,
course.
maybe tackle that. Maybe
Yeah.
don't try and create a one size fits all, because you're just not
Yeah.
going to get the best out of your people. I always think it's really funny when companies say things like, we recruit the very best talent, the very best talent, from the whole of the UK, we've got the very best people. And I think, yeah, but you also require people to be in central London for 8 a.m. every weekday.
Yeah.
How is it possible but that the very best talent also just happens to be those people who can get into, like, it's so many of these rules that we've stopped questioning, they're actually nuts when you break them down.
Yeah.
The very best talent is all over the country, and the very best talent also has children, might have some kind of neurodiversity or other care and responsibility that they're juggling, and you'd be a fool not to make work for them.
Exactly. Because then you will truly be finding the very best talent, wouldn't you?
Yes, exactly.
It's mad. So how can, if obviously we don't know what's going to happen if these mandates come in, if these mandates do come in, what would be your advice to companies on how to be able to navigate it fairly and still keep the values and their company ethos at the same time?
It's really hard if you're in a role where you're having to kind of enact somebody else's rules. It's
Yeah,
really difficult if you're sort of managing that. But I think there is a sort of quiet resistance going on to a lot of these rules, because they don't work for
it
so
don't make
many of
sense.
us. They don't make
Yeah,
sense. And I think if you can, and it's not always possible, it is really useful to sort of quietly question them, or even not quietly if you
yeah,
feel able to, because it does really limit people. And all of the research again and again shows that having people in an office 5 days a week, it does not add up. It doesn't make people more productive. It doesn't mean they're working harder. It's just not what the research shows. And
yeah.
people having to fork out for travel costs, and it's not good news with the
Huge.
cost of living crisis. Yeah, it's huge, the kind of travel costs. Um, and I would say, based on my experience, it is really scary. But if the rules stop working for you, just remember it's the rules,
Yeah,
and leave. Like, I would, rather than being miserable, there is another sort of option, and it does feel scary. I've been there. It does feel scary, but
yeah.
it seems to always work out
Mhm.
for the better. There's no point. We spend a lot of our lives at work. It's got to stack up.
Definitely. Is there any kind of organizations or anything that can help?
There's lots of amazing, we were talking about Anna Whitehouse, weren't we? And
Yeah.
the amazing work that she does. So Pregnant and Screwed's a really good organisation, but also Flex Appeal. There are some really good organisations, and they're so good because they've got the data. They've done
Okay.
really robust research to look into how flexible working works. And
Yeah.
flexible working doesn't have to just mean working from home. It can mean a plethora of stuff. Like, it can,
Yeah.
you've got to find the right way to make it work. But I think if, as leaders, we're trying to apply one rule to everybody, that's
Yeah.
so out of date. It's not the 80s anymore. We need to move on.
Definitely. 100%. And I mean, the way that our lives have evolved and our lives have moved on and our responsibilities have changed. And, so some people have different needs, such as like neurodivergence. So, there's lots of different things that come into play and lots of different support plus extra that people can give that I don't think that we've fully explored, have we?
No, we have no, not at all. I think the sort of fear response is just no, it can't be done. And all those old things, like if you give an inch, they'll take a mile, and those just they don't stack up. And
Yeah.
there's so many barriers to this stuff, but without going into the ins and outs of my marriage, so I lobbied my husband for a very long time. He works for the police, and
Okay.
you'd think there wouldn't be much flexibility available
Yeah.
there. But I, after a long time, persuaded him it would be a really good idea to go part-time,
Okay.
just to support with everything, all of the plates, help
Yeah.
keep all the plates spinning. And he was really reticent about it, but his bosses were fine. And he's now part-time. He loves it.
Oh my
Um,
God, that's
and it's
shocking,
when
actually.
he's at work, it's very structured. There's not much flexibility.
Yeah.
And if a crime happens, and
Yeah.
he's not coming home. But having part-time means he is available more at home. He's
Yeah.
off more and has more time with our little girl, which he loves. So even when it feels like it should be really rigid and the job
Yeah.
won't give, there's always ways and means. It just might look a bit different.
So what kind of impact did that then have on him as an individual? Because I think that's important to talk about as well, isn't it? It's not just the balance of family life. It could actually be, how it helps you be a happier person.
I mean, we're not divorced, so that was definitely on the cards in the end.
Saved.
Saved a marriage. He's happier though. It's a much nicer balance. I mean, his job is full on when he's there.
Wow.
It's relentless, and you see a lot that you shouldn't have that much sort of trauma that you're exposed to, but
Yeah.
it is part of the job, and he loves his role, but it means he gets more time to do other stuff, and he's in our daughter's life so much more at such a critical time. He loves it.
Yeah.
He loves it. It's been all upside.
Oh, amazing. When I was doing some research, Nyree, I came across this amazing concept that you have called the triple bottom line. Could you like explain a bit more about it and like what are the benefits?
The triple bottom line is a way of sort of organizing a business and running a business. So it means that you value people, planet, and profit equally.
Okay.
So profit is great. Everyone loves profit. Nothing wrong with profit, and it's essential for kind of running a business. You need it, but not at the expense of people and planet. So
Okay.
we write our business plan in this way. We sort of do people's one-to-ones in this way. Everything's structured around this triple bottom line, and our performance indicators for the business are grouped around these three areas. And it
Okay.
means that if any one is out of kilter one way or the other, that's not success. We're trying to sort of rewrite what success looks like. And the triple bottom line is not our concept, but it's something that we've sort of picked on and taken forward
Yeah.
and are running with. But it means that you can keep all of those really important things in balance.
Yeah.
And that means that you're able to, because I think if you allow it, profit's always going to be the most important and most urgent driver, and it is an
Of course.
important and urgent driver. But if you rewrite what success looks like, it's profit, but not at the expense of the other elements. Like
Yeah.
everything's got to add up. So if you're profitable but your staff are really miserable, that's not been a successful year in the triple bottom
Exactly.
line. And I think
And
so
then what's going to
often,
happen next year if your staff are already miserable?
well,
You're not going to have
good
enough
point.
profit. The same.
Exactly. Yeah, it is. You've got to have that balance. And we are a people business. That is
Absolutely.
basically what we sell is people's skills and talent and their time.
And you're
So
purpose led as well. Like that is so clear. Like just from talking to you, it's different to what a lot of organizations are doing. I just think that you're heart led and purpose led in all that you do at Jack and Grace.
yeah, we are. Thank you for spotting that. I'm glad it
No
sort of
worries.
comes over. Yeah, we
It's
we
so
wanted
obvious,
to.
honestly. It's evident. Like if there was a job with you, I'd apply.
You're in. Yeah, it is. It's really important, and it makes us feel sometimes when we've been to like a networking event and it's a lot of people who are still trapped in the old rules, and
Yeah,
they're asking you things like how's business, we have to remind ourselves that for us that question is broader than just they're basically asking, aren't they? How's business means how's the
yeah,
financial side of your business
yeah.
doing?
How
Like
much you made
how's
this year?
yeah, how's the money? And we have to remind ourselves that it is balancing everything. And we've made some decisions that have made other people do an intake of breath, like that feels really risky. But it's proved to be the right decision. And I always said from the beginning, one of our red lines that we wrote down, we were like, we would rather fail and do the business the way we want to do it than cave and run it in the sort of old system. So
Yeah.
that's makes us quite brave, I think. We do
Yeah.
have a board. They keep us on track and on check. We had a board before we had clients, and they're amazing. So they're a really good sort of literal sounding board to
Yeah.
keep us kind of on track. But yeah, we do want to push the boundaries a bit, because where's the fun? It'd be really
Exactly.
boring.
Exactly, because you're doing it differently and you're rewriting the rules. So you want your workplace and your company ethos to be different, because if it was just the same, then nothing would change.
Totally. Yeah.
Bless you. So what advice, Nyree, would you give to a woman right now? I'm sorry, it's a squeaky chair. It's nothing more.
I
See?
presumed it was a chair.
So if a woman sat there now at their workplace and it's feeling completely unsupported, what is the piece of advice that you would give her?
I would take a moment and remember, and as I said, this took me ages, but remember that it's not you. It is the structure you're working in and the rules. The straight jacket has stopped fitting. That's not you. That's the problem with the rules. And my advice, I mean, who am I to tell anyone to do this? But honestly, I've done it several times in my life and it's always worked out, is to leave. Take the plunge. If you can't change it where you are, life is too short. You sh
Mhm.
my advice based on my experience is it's always better to take the plunge and leave and not be miserable in work. It's just not worth it, which I know is a massive thing to chuck in your job and quit and run free. It's not a super simple thing, but it is an option. We can so often feel like we don't have that as an option, and it is an option. And even knowing that that option exists and is a real option can give you real strength.
100%, definitely. So what is coming next for Jack and Grace? Like how can people find you? What do they need to know?
In terms of finding us, so LinkedIn is where we're gobbiest. We tend to
Okay,
be,
love
yeah.
it.
LinkedIn's a good place. If you have a little look for Jack and Grace on LinkedIn, we're there. But in terms of what's next, so we are more of the same. Like what we're doing is working, so more of the same. And we've got a couple of cool things coming up, particularly around challenging salary transparency and some of the stuff that we've talked about today.
Yeah,
Why we accept so much rubbish from employers when it comes to hiding salaries and how it sort of drives inequality. So we're actually doing some filming to sort of point out how we wouldn't accept this kind of behaviour in other areas where there is an exchange of money. So why
amazing.
are we accepting it now? But yeah, more of the same. Like
Yeah,
it's going well, and it's been a conscious decision to sort of keep unpicking the more rules that we find. And
yeah,
then the odd one, obviously, we have to hoik back in because we
yeah.
realise it was a good rule.
Yeah, I mean, it was still a good rule, though. I'll stand by that.
Thanks.
I think it definitely was, and I think it shows you what you needed to see.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, totally. You're very good at flipping things. I guess this comes from all the sort of mentoring and coaching, but you're very good at flipping things and seeing them in a different way. I feel like it might not have taken you quite as long as it took me to realize that it was the rules rather than me.
I think it's different though, isn't it? When it comes to ourselves, it can be very hard. It can be easy to sit here and say, well, actually, because I'm looking at it from an aerial perspective. I'm not in your situation, so I have the benefit of being able to see the full picture. But I do think sometimes when it comes to us, I think it's like a societal thing and it's a historical thing. It's so ingrained in us to automatically assume that it's us that's done something wrong. And I think until we can challenge that way of thinking and it becomes a new habit to not assume that it's us first time, then we are going to think that way.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
about
you're so
catching
right.
it, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Oh, well, Nyree, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you. I shall put your website and the link to your LinkedIn in the show notes. And thank you very much for joining me. It was amazing.
Thank you. It's been wonderful to meet you. Really, really fun.
You too.